You talk golden to me.
It's my dream to have a golden beard.
Younger but looks older.
I'll even try a squat. Here we go.
Talk golden to me.
The six of clubs.
The golden.
Welcome to another episode of Talk Golden to Me. I am your host, Evan Golden, Golden TV, and today we are in the law offices of Berman & Berman. As always, I have a special guest in-house that is going to educate us on exactly what is going on with the medical marijuana licensing, having a concealed weapon permit. So there's a lot of questions that we're getting. A lot of people need answers. I heard you have the solution, so we're going right to an attorney who also is a gun permit owner. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to have you. And there's just been so many questions on this topic. So many people have asked me, I'd love to get a medical marijuana card, but I can't because I don't want to lose my gun permit. I don't want them to take away my guns, and vice versa. So I think that there's a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of need for education. What are the laws? What we can do. So, Thomas Fichtelman, attorney at law, thank you for joining us. And what is, I guess, your kind of knowledge in this area? Do you know something about guns or something?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on, Evan. I appreciate it. And you would say I'm an aficionado. It's where most of my disposable income goes. But the most common question I get is with the medical marijuana and the concealed weapons permits is, can I have both? And since people know that I'm a lawyer and I like guns, they always ask me. So first and foremost, we'll just cut straight to the chase. Yes, you can have your medical marijuana license and your concealed weapons permit. So in the state of Florida, under statute 790.06, it lays out what are the eliminating factors so you can't have a concealed weapons permit. And nowhere in there does it state that if you have your medical marijuana license, you can't have a concealed weapons permit. The things that are eliminating factors are felony arrests and a couple other things, but nothing about a medical marijuana license. So, good news in the state of Florida, you can have both. But
why do so many people think you can't then?
Well, where it comes from is actually the federal form you fill out, which is called Form 4473, or the Firearm Transaction Form. When you purchase a brand new firearm from an FFL, a federal firearms licensed dealer. And the form's right here, looks just like this. Mm-hmm. And then the main thing that people point out is Section E, which states, are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance? And then in bold at the bottom it states, warning, the use or possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law regardless of whether it has been legalized or decriminalized for medical or recreational purposes in the state where you reside. So in other words, if you have a medical marijuana license, you technically can't buy a brand new gun from an FFL, a federal firearms licensed dealer. However, there are a number of loopholes, as there are with everything.
Uh-oh, the loophole word.
So the loophole is, at least in the state of Florida, with private sales. So say you wanted to purchase one of these firearms from me, I don't have to do a background check on you. It's not something that's required. It's not something that the state says I have to do. Pretty much, I don't even have to get a receipt from you. It's cash in hand. So if you have a couple $1,000s, you want to buy some guns, let's do some business. But it only deals with a federal firearms license dealer.
So tell me more about the background check rules, because since the Parkland shooting, I've kind of tried to educate myself and learn more about it. What are the rules right now for the state and the nation, if they're different?
Well, for the state, it's a little different. There's not a whole lot that goes into it. And honest to God, I don't know what the background check does, but I do know that there's a lot of stuff in the...
But is a background check mandatory?
Yes, from a brand... when you go to an FFL and when you fill out this form, there is a background check that is done to make sure that you are not a felon. But as far as the psychiatric and stuff like that, that's not something that's looked into. And that's something that's really big and coming up right now, because if you're a crazy person, you probably shouldn't own a firearm. I'm all for the Second Amendment, the Constitution and the right to bear arms, but, if you are mentally unstable, I personally don't think that you should own a firearm.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a whole another topic of discussion, obviously, with the mental kind of element, putting that into it. So
exactly.
Tell me, I know you wanted to really share some other important information, specifically on the gun permitting side as well.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is, just be smart with it. State of Florida has more concealed weapons permits than any other state in the nation. I believe we are in excess of over 200,000 concealed weapons permits at this point in time. The big thing is just to be smart about it. Follow the rules. Obviously, don't carry inside of a school. There's a long list of places you're not allowed to carry your gun, bars for one of them. And also delineation between what is concealable. Obviously a small pistol, not a rifle like what we have on the table right here. It's kind of, you have A and B, the ones you are allowed to conceal and the ones that you can conceal.
So I'm assuming you can't conceal something of this magnitude that's in front of us right here. What kind of weapon is this?
That is an AR-15. And before anybody says anything, AR stands for Armalite, the inventor of the rifle. It does not stand for assault rifle. Also, a common misconception is not all AR-15s are fully automatic. They are semi-automatic. For someone like you and I to own a full auto machine gun that's transferable, it has to be manufactured before 1986, and it's called a pre-ban, which is when the ban for full auto machine guns happened. They do exist, however, unless you have $25,000, chances are you're not going to be able to own one. The only other way you can own one is if you are an FFL with a Title or Class 3 FFL that can do suppressors, full auto, and everything like that. So, layperson like you and I, chances are we will never own a fully automatic rifle.
Now, what do you say to people that say, "What do you need a weapon like this?" These are maybe to defend yourself, but something like this is created for mass killing, mass shooting. How do you respond to something like that? Because that's what I think it's for.
I take it with a grain of salt. Like, I understand when you see in movies, like I'm a big fan of the John Wick movies, for instance, and it goes and blows away a bunch of people. It's the sport of it. Just like fishing, bowling. Maybe bad example there, but whenever I meet someone that says that they are scared of guns and that they are mass killing machines, I ask them, have you ever gone and shot a gun before? And 9 times out of 10, they haven't. So it's one of those things like, don't knock it till you try it. And I always invite them to my property to go shooting, and I have yet to have an unsatisfied customer, if you will. There soon after, they're asking me more and more questions as far as what they should get, what brands I like, trying to educate themselves. And that's a big thing when it comes down to this stuff is, don't be ignorant. Educate yourself. Just because it's scary doesn't mean, it's bad. There's plenty of people out there like me, and a lot more vocal than me as well, as far as, guns and going out in the sport of shooting. But, the best way I can say is don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah. Look, I don't think anyone's trying to violate or ban the Second Amendment, but I think for us, at least in my opinion, enforcing, like you were talking earlier, more stricter background checks and that kind of nature, because it comes down to safety and who you're putting these in the right hands. So
I couldn't agree more with you. Definitely. I do think that the whole rules and regulations are a little lax. The private sales, not everybody is a responsible gun owner like myself. So when I sell a gun to someone, I make sure that I do my due diligence with them. But I know that many people don't do what I do. So there's that, the psychiatric background check. I understand that goes into medical records and HIPAA and all that. But at some point, you have to say enough is enough. When you have these tragedies that are going on, which no one should have to go through. It's unspeakable.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate your time and information. Like we said, a lot of people have been writing our firm, and a lot of people have questions. They go online, and there's conflicting answers. So I think still people aren't 100% sure. So hopefully, if you're watching this or listening, you're understanding that it is possible. I think a lot of people said that mixing cannabis or medical marijuana and guns was never going to happen or can't happen or is not allowed. That's obviously not the case.
Exactly. And you have to make sure that you separate between what you're talking about as far as purchasing a brand new firearm from a dealer, private sales, and also the concealed weapons permit. But for the sake of discussion, to have your concealed weapons permit and your medical marijuana license are 100% okay. We can go into, we can have a conversation for hours on end as to, the medical marijuana license and being part of HIPAA, which no one has access to unless you give the HIPAA authorization. You know, we can go into the loopholes. That's a conversation for another day because there's so much information that can be discussed about it. But for the sake of today, you know, the big question that everybody asks me that deals with guns and medical marijuana license, yes, you can have both in the state of Florida.
What about now? You say yes, you could have it both in the state of Florida, but at the end of the day, it's still federally illegal. So, from a federal standpoint, it is illegal, right? Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, it's still recognized as an illegal substance under federal law. You know, you're technically not supposed to take it on the plane with you and everything like that. Technically, you're not allowed to take it on the plane with you. But you know, yeah, the federal law, like, you know, there's a whole thing about, you know, medical marijuana and growing it, and, you know, it's a cash only business because the banks won't accept it, because it's technically drug money. It's super interesting how, you know, they get around all that stuff and kind of technically legally laundering money if you think about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm reading here now online that it says that there has been several lawsuits been filed just this year, alleging the limitation violates the Second Amendment and based on your medical marijuana cards. So I think there's still, you know, some rulings that I guess, and obviously it's interesting because you got to go by state, and then when the federal law comes into play, they could obviously overrule that.
Exactly. Like, I have read a few things with regards to other states because, you know, you got Colorado, California, you know, all the states that have recreational marijuana, you know, Nevada. They're also big Second Amendment states where you have your concealed weapons permit. So there's a big discussion with that as well. I don't know too much about it because I don't practice law in those other states. But like with your concealed weapons permit, like I can technically carry having my concealed weapons permit in other states that, you know, follow our rules and regulations. So there's a whole thing with that. You know, other states might have different rules with regards to their concealed weapons permit. So once you get outside the state, it is a slippery slope, legal jargon, that you go down, and, you know, you go down the rabbit hole, and, you know, but again, I don't know about other states.
Certainly. Well, we appreciate the information. Anything else you want to educate us? I know you had a lot of different ideas and notes and things that people needed to be kind of just shed some light on while we have you in studio. Anything else with restrictions and laws or permits and medical marijuana cards? We kind of covered it all.
We kind of covered it all. It was a crash course, definitely. You know, the big thing is just because they look scary doesn't necessarily mean they are scary. Don't knock it till you try it. You know, I encourage everybody to go out and, you know, use your Second Amendment rights. Go to a shooting range. You can rent a gun. But just because you know, someone has a gun, don't look negatively towards them. You know, I can't stand when people talk down to me like, "Oh, I can't believe you have a gun." You know, you know, that's terrible, and all these bad things. Well, I understand bad things happen, but awful car accidents happen. We all drive cars. You know, I guarantee you, everybody's sped at least once in their life. Texting and driving, you know, I admit that I have texted and drove since the ban or Monday, so, you know, $30 fine. But that's another thing that's important. You know, there's rules and regulations. You should adhere to them.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate your time, Tom. If people want to reach out to you, if they have questions about, you know, their medical marijuana card or obtaining a license or gun permits, can they reach out to you via email, phone number?
Definitely. Feel free to call the firm and ask for Attorney Tom because the last name's impossible. Number here is 561-826-5200.
That's great. Well, we appreciate your time and information on this. Definitely shed some light on the topic. We appreciate you tuning in, watching, and listening. Subscribe, wish, like, share it. I'll do that fun stuff on social media because we appreciate it. It keeps the show and the program going. Once again, Tom, thank you for joining us in the studio.
Thanks for having
This
me,
is Evan Golden from the Law Offices of Berman & Berman. Talk Golden, getting educated today on medical marijuana and gun permitting license. Very interesting stuff. I'm still researching it. I have a lot more questions. We're going to bring you back on the show next time. But now you got to get out of here.
Take it easy, Evan.